My biggest fear would be when the first comes and I don't get the rent.
I found that my tenant had dumped concrete down my toilet. Can you believe Fair Housing fined me $5,000 for that?
How do you onboard your tenants? What do you do?
I don't even know if I do it right.
If you're a landlord, don't just rent, rent perfect. The Rent Perfect podcast with property expert and private investigator, David Pickron.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Rent Perfect podcast. Today I'm excited. I got Mark Zinman here to talk about really one of my favorite topics today, Mark.
Probably shouldn't be one of your favorite topics, but okay.
I know. I'm just trying to make it exciting. But we're going to talk about marijuana today. Not a user myself. Don't even know how, all the slang words, Mary Jane, maybe, all that good stuff. But
you're asking a lawyer. I don't know.
You would never admit it anyways. So anyways, let's talk about marijuana and how it how do we deal with this in our properties? And the reason that we're talking about this today is we had the elections here in November 2020. A lot of states not only made it medically legal, but they went ahead and said full-on legal recreational marijuana is good across the country. I think only 5 states have held out to make it still completely illegal. And a lot of landlords are asking, do I need to put up with it, and can my tenants smoke marijuana in my property? So, Mark, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. Mark's an attorney here in Arizona. Anything that Mark says is not legal advice. He's just given me some good conversation. Go to your own attorney to get legal advice. But
I
Mark,
appreciate your disclaimer.
That.
Nice job.
Yeah, I try. So tell me, what rights do we have as a landlord in our private property, and what can we say and not say and all that good stuff?
And that's actually a great way of phrasing the question, because it is your property. And so the question is, what rights and what restrictions can you put in? And generally, the default is, especially in Arizona, and I'm sure everywhere else as well, is that you can control what goes on in your property, even as expansive as gun rights, right? Marijuana is a bit more dicey because people are so not used to what's going on with the changes in the law, recreational, medicinal. But if you go to something as core as our Second Amendment rights to guns, right? And you think on a community and an apartment community, they can restrict guns being on property because they have concerns of safety, just appearance of threats. And so they can say, we don't want guns anywhere in the community areas. And so you kind of take that control, that property right control, and it applies the same way as marijuana and say, it's a violation of federal law. We don't want it on our property. More importantly, though, if you think about it, if you have a family living in one unit, they're not going to want the smell of marijuana coming over into theirs. And that's where the real, I think, property owners are the managers. It's hard for them.
So you might take a little bit different look at this if you have a multifamily or if you have a single family. There might be a few dynamics.
Absolutely.
Because with a single family, you don't have the common area. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So in the common area, it's private property. You can control what goes on the private property. So if you have a community pool and you see some people with a bong out there smoking pot, you can come out and if your policies are no marijuana on the premises, you can enforce that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can do it in the units themselves, even in a single family.
Okay.
What landlords have to realize is if you're managing a single family, you don't have that same sort of privity of knowing what's going on a day-to-day basis, right? You don't have a manager on site. You don't have neighbors telling you what's going on, the complaints.
I don't look through the windows, and
well, you don't have the hallways, people
Right.
complaining, the smoke going from unit to unit.
Right.
If you're truly in a single-family home, the chance you're going to get notified that somebody's doing something inside the unit is a lot less than in multifamily,
Right.
where smoke permeates.
So I'm doing monthly inspections right now, just kind of where we're at in the times. And so if I roll in and I have a no smoking policy, now I think I want to talk to that about in a second. But if I roll in there and I see now a bong sitting on the table, and now it's recreational legal in the state of Arizona and many other states, can I still give them a notice for that?
You can definitely give them the notice, no question. I think what we're suggesting is kind of, at least in Arizona, medicinal was passed, I think, in 2010.
Yes.
And so at that time, it was still covered by the crime-free addendum that's used across the country. But we said, tweak that a bit. Make it clear that even medicinal is still prohibited. And that's what we're suggesting now as well, saying, okay, yes, recreational is allowed, but it's still a violation of federal law. No use, no possession, no cultivation of it on our property. And if you see it on your property, then absolutely give a notice. Whether it's a 10-day or an immediate, depends on kind of what the circumstances are and what you can actually prove.
Okay, and then also right now I have in my leases no smoking is permitted on the premises. Would that also cover smoking marijuana? I don't think it says smoking tobacco, or it just says no smoking.
Yes.
So I imagine that would cover.
It should cover everything. Again, I'm an attorney, I like the clarity.
Right.
I like to say no e-cigarettes, no marijuana, no tobacco, literally just list out everything. But even if it doesn't list out everything, it says no smoking. And if you're smoking, doesn't matter what it is, it could be anything. And
Right.
it violates your lease, no question.
And with a lot of the edibles now, the brownies, the caramels, the blueberries, all the good stuff that they're making.
You seem to know a lot of different options there.
Yeah, I actually rent to an owner of a dispensary, so he kind of educates me on the percentage of sales and anyways.
Seems like a very convenient answer.
Yeah, I thought about it for the podcast, so.
That's what you call preparation for a podcast. I like that.
No, but there are a lot of edibles out there that he tells me that people are getting, and I just imagine as a landlord, I'm not even going to know about those. So,
Correct. There's no way.
So really, I'm worried about the smoke in the air, and the reason I'm worried about the smoke in the air is because it's going into my ceilings, it's going into my walls, it's permeating the carpet. But as far as now drugs in my home, especially marijuana, I'm probably not even going to know about it unless I'm doing on-site inspections.
Correct. I mean, there's no way you're going to get, even in an apartment community, you're not going to get notified when people are eating edibles. Just
Right.
good luck. Like the peach rings that look like candy. You're just not going to know. And really, most of the time, you're probably not even going to care anyways. It's really when it starts to bother other people or damage your unit. And smoke damage, is excessive,
Yes.
right? I mean, you're
Yes.
talking about thousands of dollars to fix a unit where somebody's been sitting in smoking inside. It ruins the carpet.
Yeah.
It ruins the paint.
The ceiling,
Yeah.
it gets in everywhere.
It's disgusting. And
Yeah.
so that's the concern, because tenants always say, well, what do you care if I smoke? It's my right. It's recreational. Well, it's not that. It's you're disturbing other people and you're ruining my property.
Right. I want to I know you're an expert in landlord-tenant law, and I'm going to throw you kind of a topic that you might even say, Dave, I'm not real sure about that. But here's how else I see it affecting landlords, even though it's not on our property. I think people think because it's recreational, it becomes like alcohol. It becomes totally legal, and I can do it. And then they show up to work high, or they show up to work, and they send them for a drug test, and they don't pass. Now, I'm telling you, in the employment world where I'm at and doing employment screening, you will be fired if you have marijuana in your system, if you're driving, right, because you're coming to the employer impaired. And it's still federal law. And we are seeing a lot of employers firing people for having drugs in their system. And this has happened a lot when Colorado first started. And they're saying, wait, this is all legal now. But there's a chance if you rent to somebody who smokes pot and they get a job that does a drug test on them, there's a chance they lose their job. And when they lose their job, we're affected by it, obviously, because we need the rent.
Yeah.
Right? And so you still want to make sure that you're really watching those people that have some, like in Arizona, part of the law was they're expunging all of their past misdemeanors, felonies of drug possession for marijuana.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So obviously this is national, but in Arizona, basically they passed the law which says you can use, buy, or possess up to an ounce of marijuana if you're over 21, and then they're going back in any of those crimes that are currently pending or charged. They're wiping those away, which Maricopa County said there's thousands of those charges.
And also in Arizona, not sure about nationwide, you can grow 5 plants for personal use. So if I'm going to my rentals now and I'm seeing a little garden now all of a sudden I didn't see before.
It's in the closet.
A little hydroponics going on. So I'm certainly going to be, paying attention to that. So I think the bottom line is, even though that marijuana, around the country is becoming legalized, more and more, I think as a landlord, my personal opinion is I want to stay away from it. It still causes too many rippling effects that can affect me down the road.
Yeah, there's a lot of people just don't realize the impact it can have on property owners. And the same, I always look to the extreme, because that's anytime I'm trying to figure out a new problem, I'm like, okay, how does this impact clients? How do we work through this? I always go to the extreme. So here, I look at Oregon, right? Oregon is now passed basically saying you can have hard drugs, heroin, cocaine, meth in minor amounts, and it's fine. Now, if you take that into a property, that could lead to a lot of problems down the road from a property owner, people dying in properties, damage to properties, all those kind of things. So it's like, okay, yes, states may be more lenient now. It's still a violation of federal law, and it can still have bad impacts upon the property owner.
And I always tell all my clients, listen, if you rent to somebody who's doing, meth, cocaine, marijuana, whatever, what kind of people do they hang out with? What kind
What's
of
it gonna
person?
attract?
Yeah, what kind of person is going to be hanging out in your home? And so you're not only renting to that person, you're renting to his swath of responsible friends that are coming over and the damage that possibly could happen in your unit. So
Yeah, and especially for viewers of the podcast here, it's a lot of single family, right? So you got to realize, what does that entail? You then have the HOA that's seeing all these people. You see the cars, people out front of the house. You're going to start getting notices. There's going to be problems that arise.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you. I think you and I realize, and we've come to the conclusion that even though it's legal around the country in a lot of states, it's something that we just really want to stay away from. We do have the protections that it's illegal federally. We can stand behind that. And we do have the private property laws, and we can make those rules too on our own private property, correct?
Absolutely. And I think that is the one thing that's going to watch, though. I think the House is looking at whether or not this should continue to be illegal on a federal level. And that's going to be a page turner, if you will, depending on what happens there.
And we'll be back in front of the microphones talking about our strategies at that point.
Exactly.
Because now we can lean back on federal law and say it is illegal at this point, and that's the rules we're going to follow. Mark, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.
Always a pleasure to be here.
All right. Well, stay away from any kind of tenants who have propensities to do any kind of drugs or any criminal histories that have to do with drugs. I tell you, it's more than just getting high. It's more than just a small night, a moment, a party. It is a reflection on how your property is going to be ran in the next 6 months, next year, how you're going to deal with your tenants, who's going to be around your property. And I can tell you there's so many people out there who will treat your property so much better. So let's find those people for you. And until next time, continue to rent perfect.